All right, site director, can you please say your name and spell it and tell me your occupation currently?
My name is Site Director Brandon Mays, Brandonmays.
So I'll be asking you a few questions. We will have two sections, one of my questions and one's from the public. By the public, I mean the foundation.
Alrighty, sounds good.
All right, on the first question. What does your job entail, and what are the ups and downs about this job, and how do you handle your stress on the shoulders?
Well, to simply put it, the job entails me managing the whole site as a whole. That's one of the easiest vivid descriptions of it. It can't get any more complicated than that, even though it does. A lot of the pros of the position, you have a lot of power to make change. So, I could just snap my fingers, make a new division if I wanted to. Um, as easy as that is. Cons of the role, uh, you are, you know, con of the role itself is that there are a lot of people who, look to you for judgment or guidance of, hey, I ran into this issue. What do I got to do? So you're gonna have to have the balls to action decision.
And like I said earlier, how do you handle the stress?
The stress it doesn't get too bad. Sometimes it does get annoying at times, but you just have to remember that um, everything takes time. So, when you get stressed about certain things, like man, uh, blah 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 division is not going good. I gotta, and I've didn't done everything in my power. Maybe I just need to give them like a week or two to actually get their shit straight. Uh, that's kind of what helps me with stress, but I don't really get stressed out too much often on this.
All right. What do you think the best part of being the site director is?
Best part of being the site director, for me at least, because I know people have plenty of different answers, but for me at least, the will of the people to enact change. I can when someone is requesting like or they have an issue with something, I can actually make that change and like make everyone's lives a little bit easier depending on the action I take. Or the con is that it could also make it harder.
All right. On to the next question. Do you have any big plans for the future of the site? Any new areas or new improvements about old areas?
Uh, I'm not too sure about new areas. We're gonna have to still look into that. I'm not too sure. As for like new ideas or new like interests or whatever, we have considered like, you know, planning stuff within security and everything like that. Trying to get them a little bit more useful, have more permissions and everything of that sort, so that it can retain a little bit more of the player base. Um, but a lot of things I can talk about, I'm not allowed to. So, I can't really give. I have to unfortunately be very vague with that question.
It's all right. We know you're a high man in this foundation. We know you have stuff that you can't tell us. Don't worry about that. All right, on to the next question. What are you planning to do with the influx of new hires from other sites, and how do you feel about this influx of new hires coming to this foundation, this site?
Well, how we're dealing with it so far is we're welcoming with open arms. We have a competent team of COs, NCOs, as well as our heads of staff who are able to, get them adequated with the site itself. Um, as for like welcoming them here, all are welcome. We have no issue with them, coming over. That's why we also initiated rank transfers for those who needed them. And we're gonna keep pushing for that like positive atmosphere for the rest of the site to come.
All right. Now we will moving on to section two, which is the questions and concerns from the public. And by that I mean public, people inside the foundation and what they are questioning, what are they concerned about. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Our first set of questions and concerns is from, I believe, Staff Sergeant Frederick. And he asks, "Do you plan to add gates to the block?" And his concerns are, it is very easy to get to a hostile SCP cell.
So the issue with adding gates to D block there's no like specific issue because a lot of the times it's just a class D getting a card and then it's them using that card to actually get past the key carded system. Um, with that being said, there's a lot of things we can do in that regard. One of the more recent things I have done is, enforcing that FE has, at least one checkpoint towards D block. If not, also near the armory as well. We also try to push for that to make sure that they do not have the ability to get guns, from the Foundation vendors and whatnot. Um, as for, it's kind of hard to say like, because we do technically have gates, but it's the issue of not having enough security members to, protect them from getting there.
And with his other concern, says it is very easy to get to hostile SCP cells. What do you think about this?
Well, that actually just comes from, a security aspect, since it is so easy to get to those cells, we should utilize our resources, the resources we have to prevent people from getting to those hostile SCP cells, for, within HCZ, right? That's basically security and MTF zone, right? And why we also push for MTF to not be in LCZ is because there's a whole two other section of gates that are unguarded. You have entrance zone, and then you have heavy containment zone. That's why we also kind of push for MTF being there because if we don't have them there, we have that. Hey, this D class is able to easily get over there. Security can only do so much because mainly a lot of them are within the light containment zone, and that's where they guard. But I think at the time of right now, the only way to really fix that is to start allocating, MTF forces and, elite special forces from security and push them towards heavy containment zone.
All right. We will move on to the next person, and this comes from Warden Specialist Jack. He says, "Do you plan to add more keypads around the site?
Do I have a plan of what?
Add more keypads around the site?"
It depends. Probably. We'd have to take a look at it. There's not a lot of areas which actually need keypads, and I would understand for certain areas like for our wing and everything of that sort, but those type of keypads are already added there. So, if we add more keypads, either people are going to complain a little bit more, being like, "Wow, there's way too many keypads within this area. I can't get around effectively." Um, Sometimes adding more keypads does more harm than good because sometimes, yeah, sure, or you'll stop the D class, but it's going to take longer and harder for members of security and or FE to get to place, especially when time is critical.
I understand that. I understand that. All right. On to the next person. I believe he is Pursuer. I believe that is his name. He is SWAT, I believe. And he says,
Oh, Perseus?
yeah, I think, yeah, I believe his name is Perseus. All right. He says MTF should not be in LCZ at all, no matter what. What are your thoughts about this?
I 100% agree. MTF should not be within the light containment zone, nor should they be sitting around in the light containment zone doing absolutely nothing. The amount of reports I've gotten about MTF just doing nothing, that was also on one of our investigation reports. It was just constantly crazy. They had so many of these viable assets which could have been allocated to heavy containment zone because I'm pretty sure some of the CCs were open. And, if we don't have constant patrolling from the mobile task forces, then we are left severely unguarded, especially like if a CI raid happens, guess where they are at? They can easily get in the foundation within the entrance zone before they even get past heavy containment zone, right? Having them, they should definitely just not be in like containment zone whatsoever. And we've already kind of pushed this, and FE just needs to start enforcing very soon. So it is going to be trespassing for uh, MTF members unless there's like an active breach. They need to recontain from heavy containment, which is in LCZ. That's like the only time they ever should be able to come in,
And what if
or
CI
when
is inside?
specifically requested by security.
What if CI is in his LCC then?
Oh, then no, of course, then they're gonna have to chase after them. But you know, with MTF and its amount of members they have, they should definitely be utilizing their resources, their command and leadership. They should be looking at different ways we can plan for situations like this. Because if we know that there's a still constant raid going on, and we fall back to like containment zone, entrance zone is not protected. So we have to come. They have to come to a consensus and work together to figure out how to solve that issue.
All right. Now, this comes from Captain John, and he says, when will Gensec gain batons and reusable cuffs? I believe he means the batons
Uh,
from FE, similar to that.
I could see about getting the batons added to like the riot team unit and warden and sergeant plus. It just depends though because we need to actually see who actually is going to use them and what they're going to be used for. You said batons and something else, correct? Or was it just
Yes, yes,
batons?
reusable cuffs.
Oh, reusable cuffs? They actually should be reusable. That might be a flaw someone's gonna have to look at,
All right,
which we can probably get right into it.
all right then. All right, this comes from Sergeant I think Taz Foley. Does that name ring a bell to you?
As Foley, I'm pretty sure I've heard of him and seen him a couple times.
All right, and he says, uh, there should be oh my god, there should be more wardens. There are not enough around, and more people to train Gensec into these positions.
Uh, Is that a question or a statement?
I believe it's concern. He says he wants more wardens. There are not enough around, and he wants more people to train Gensec into these roles. What is your question about this? What are your statement about this?
I do actually notice the lack of security being able to get trained. I will talk a little bit on that. Say like that also will apply to research as well. Getting auto trainers to actually train recruits to actually go from recruit to cadet. That is one thing we're going to try to be going for. Um, you know, Add-on perspective wise, we're going to try to get it done. We just need to make sure it gets all set up and whatnot, and we have to find the proper add-on for it. And then, from that, we can move into discussing the difference of training people for these specializations. I don't I haven't checked in with security yet because the specializations were just recently added like 2 to 3 days ago. But it is something I can bring up for my next meeting with the chief of security. Because if people are wanting to get trained within specializations such as ward and whatnot, and there is no one able to train them, that becomes a significant issue, and it seems like we'll need trainers for these specific divisions, not like necessarily a role which is hindered by a rank, but having a warden lead or a medical lead, stuff like that, where they can delegate their duties for training people within these positions. However, we still have to set a standard for these trainings as well. We can't just be like, hey, you got the whitelist, there you go, you're good to go. We need actually, you know, have them be able to build the skills of knowing what to do and whatnot because I don't want a warden who doesn't know the entirety of the warden schedule. I don't want a medical team member who doesn't know anything medical related. You know, stuff. It's stuff like that where we need to also be standard.
All right, is that all?
Yeah, that's.
All right.
I'll keep looking into the issue.
On to the next person. I believe this is actually one of the new transfers from a different site. His name is Fe Master Sergeant Trash. Does that name ring a bell at all? Have you seen him around?
I think it does. I've seen him around.
All right, and he
He
says,
got staff sergeant recently.
yes, I believe he says there is a severe lack of ethics. A lot of people acting unethical, and there's a lot of abuse of power and excuses of these ethical abusing. And he wants someone to represent ethics itself, like a high position, like someone up here to
Hmm.
this rank to represent ethics and hammer down ethics. What do you think about this? What are your statements?
So he wants implementation of a ethics committee. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So, oh, dude, I could actually talk about ethics for a long time because there is a lot of concern for the ethics department within the site. You know, a lot of players who come from Magni don't understand the issues we've had with the ethics committee. I understand that like members from the other site are very advocate of pushing for an ethics department, but in Deep Gaming's time or within our site's time of what 8 to like almost 10 years, we've had through every iteration of different types of ethics committee and whatnot, and somehow in some way they all end up turning into a abuse of power and or a power grab from the members within the ethics committee. It's usually always ending up to be a um what's the word? It always ends in a power grab or a friend group or whatnot. Um, so people who actually want to push ethics on the site cannot gain the position to do so. Um, I do think we do need more ethical representation as in a code of ethics, which, I would have to look over and talk to the director of research so that it's actually properly enforced. But, you know, I think right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold off on actual representation for the ethics committee because that's another member of the site administration. And when you add roles from the site administration, it either A takes power away from the heads of staff, because if we have to enforce ethical obligations, that takes away some powers away from like the foundation enforcement. They can only go into crimes such as, just simple laws, while ethics actually handles the more higher detailed laws which are usually ethical concerns. Or it takes powers away from the site administration and makes it a lot more of a bureaucracy rather than getting work done. But usually we just have to figure out different types of systems of how would we implement an ethics committee. Because usually as it is a committee or we don't really have like a representative role, um, you know, it becomes an issue like, hey, what are we gonna have to decide to do and whatnot. Um, kind of rambling on a little bit because I do love talking about the thoughts of ethics committee. I used to pursue and of us having an ethics committee until I've done research on it. Um, Usually it goes good the first few weeks, and then afterwards it like goes into a shithole somehow because either an ethics committee member has started abusing his power, doing the right amount of work, they're ignoring ethical cases and whatever. It's stuff like that, but um, I don't know if I'm going to implement a ethics committee within my term. Possibly the second term of whoever is the next site director might implement it, which, if they do, then that's something of their own concern they're going to have to work on. But, you know, I do not think I will be implementing any type of ethical concern in that regard.
All right, all right. I'd say, cause he was going quite on about ethics, and I couldn't get it down all in my notes. So I'd say if you really want to deep talk with ethics, I say should go talk with him yourself because I believe he has a lot to say about ethics.
Yeah, sure. If he reached out, listen, I'm
Always available, I'm assuming, about these talks.
huh?
You'd be always available because you kind of just cut off.
Yeah, no, sorry, I had to fix something.
It's alright.
Someone forgot the whitelist. Um, yeah, no, essentially, I mean, hey, my site administration is built on communication. Anyone can contact me, whether you're a junior enlisted or, one of the heads of staff. It doesn't matter what your rank is. Everyone can always reach out to me and talk to me about specific issues. One of the one of the ideas for the specializations also came from a junior specialist. So it's not like just because of your rank you don't have any ideas. It's actually you going out there and making those ideas like happen. There's a lot more to everyone's role than everyone thinks there is. Security can do a lot more than what they think they do. They're not just simply guarding D block 24/7. They have plenty of other things to do rather than just sit around and do nothing. But that type of thing is going to happen only when security gets more active, which is what we're trying to push for rather than, MTF being the biggest division or Foundation Enforcement being the biggest division because security should be our top priority and they should be getting a lot of the main content because that is the main content division, unfortunately. Um, but yeah.
Alright. I love this little talk. We will moving on to another question. I believe this is from FE Senior Officer Scout, and he says he wants easier access to amnestics. What are your concerns about
hmm
that? What are your talks? What are your statements about this?
That is something we can do. If we do implement it, it's only going to be the base amount of amnestics like A, B, and C. Where anything like D and higher, and, other amnestics such of that sort, like ones that gain back memory and whatnot, are probably going to be limited towards the higher ranks of the COs, heads of staff, and or site administration, because those type of stuff can actually fuck with you. Um, you know, what the other two or the other three can only fuck with you for about like a couple hours to a day, right? So if we're doing that, we're gonna have to limit it. I don't have any issues with that though. That's not a big issue for me. I can definitely get that implement.
All right. Now, I believe this next one, me and you both know the answer. And Chief Briggs asks, "Why does D class have materials to craft guns and weapons and cannons?" And along those lines, what are your thoughts about this and statements?
100% honest, I do not know. If I had to guess, a lot of their times how they're getting their weapons is through you know, riots and breakouts. When we have these different riots and breaks out, when now, holy smokes, when we have these riots and breakouts within the Foundation, most of the time they go around to the Foundation Armory because that area is so open from like SCPs and whatever, and they're able to take those type of guns and whatnot and, redistribute them to the other Class D, which is also a big issue because, hey, we need a lot of security to deal with that, which also kind of runs back to my idea of like, hey, security needs to be one of our more main divisions rather than the other ones. But like when it comes to stuff like that, that slowly starts to become an issue that we're gonna have to deal with on a later date. Um, I at the most part, I can't really answer that. I'm not too much in D block because I'm not really allowed to be. But we could probably get someone to do an investigation, see how are they making all these high quality weapons. Because at minimum, I think that the biggest thing they should probably be able to make is like a pistol, like a makeshift pistol. But having a full automatic rifle is just unbearable, and we just don't know how that happens.
Yep. And I believe this next question is more of a personal issue and a request. This is from Deputy Chief Graves, and he says he wants a unique uniform and he wants to get paid a lot more. What do you think about this one?
He wants a unique uniform.
Yes, and he wants to get paid a lot more.
What does he want? His, I mean, I'm pretty sure he has like his own like suit and tie and everything like that. I mean, that's not a big issue. Like
Yeah, I
he should
understand.
have a suit and tie and everything of that sort. I'm not too sure. Then he gets paid the head of staff rate, which is around 450. Um, Now a lot higher than legit every other member of the division, other than the chief.
I understand that. All right. And this is our last question. Um, Anybody who is currently watching this, I apologize if I did not get to you. If not that, you did not have any questions. But this is from Dr. Danny Delware. A lot of Dans.
Wonderful name.
Yep. He says the board inside the researcher wing does not have 610 on it, and 682 does not have a lock on it, and SPs do not have locks on them, and there is a vent that leads to D block all the way to research. And I believe you answered some of these questions already, such as the 682 doesn't have a lock and SPs don't have a lock. So what are the statements of the other two?
About the
The
D block and the 610.
Yes.
Well, the D block issue, I know what you're talking about. That issue goes to a supposed storage closet within the research wing. Um, that's something we can't really deal with other than, we could probably have security patrolling those areas. But then again, rolls back into the issue, we need more security. Um, Another thing, probably 610, that's able to be added. That's not a big deal. Um, that's just something that's going to be have to be added in just like a bit, not currently, but it'll probably be added on a later date.
All right. Now for the Slack section, can you please just say your name and spell it for me? That'll be all for the day.
Spell my name.
Yeah, say your name and spell your name for me. This will be the last section that we need.
All right, well, I'm site director Brandon Mays, BrandonMays.
Yep. And thank you for having this interview with me, and I hope you have a good day.
Of course. Yes, it was a pleasure.